So I love Spider-Man. Chances are that if you're watching this video, you probably love Spider-Man as well. And of course, in the last 16 years, Spider-Man has had 3 separate series focusing on the character. First, there was the original trilogy by Sam Raimi, starring Tobey Maguire. After that, there was the duology made by Mark Webb, starring the one and only Andrew Garfield. And of course, the most recent iteration is the first entry into the MCU, starring Tom Holland as Peter Parker. Now, when you look across all 3 of these franchises, you definitely get the sense that Spider-Man isn't moving much past the comfort zone of the character. Sure, the Amazing Spider-Man took some crazy risks, but those were all bad on a technical and creative level. The original trilogy by Sam Raimi more or less had to play it in a very safe way, considering they were kind of inventing the wheel for what modern-day comic book movies would be. And Spider-Man Homecoming brings us all the way back to the youngest version of the character we've seen so far, and definitely has the feeling that he's going to be in high school and pretty young for the majority of what we're going to see on film. Now, of course, Spider-Man makes money at the box office, but at the same time, he's selling far less tickets than he was before, considering inflation of prices. So at some point, I believe that they're going to have to do something that nobody expects, much like a lot of the MCU movies are trying to take risks outside the box. We know that they've said after Avengers 4, the MCU is going to go in places we aren't expecting, and it's my belief that at one point, we could possibly see a Spider-Verse film. So I'm actually going to talk about on why I feel this way and how it could be done. So first up, we already know that starting with Doctor Strange and Ant-Man, there is a multiverse. And they've already said multiple times in different interviews that Ant-Man and the Wasp, aka Ant-Man 2, is going to go further into this. We know that there is the reality gem that's in the MCU, and a lot of things can be played off of that. Now, if you look at Marvel Comics sales, the most recent Spider-Verse event and even Venomverse to a degree were pretty huge, selling lots of comics and moving lots of property. So when you look at it that way, if that's selling good, why wouldn't you want some of that to influence from the comics to, of course, the live action side? And then second up, you look at how Marvel is testing various properties. Miles Morales, ever since his actual first time putting on the suit in Ultimate Comics, and then moving over to the main universe and now being a star of a movie, has definitely made his name famous when it comes to Spider-Man. Not only that, the theory of the Spider-Verse and the multiverse for Spider-Man is going to get major exposure this year, at the end of the year, when Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse actually comes out to the big screen, starring Miles Morales himself. And much like Marvel does in a lot of their other properties, the Spider-Verse and multiple Spider-People working together has already been explored in various cartoons, most recently Marvel's Spider-Man. So people are already getting in the back of their mind that this is a common thing. So why not take it to the next level? Why not literally bring the Spider-Verse into the MCU and into live action? And also go on and celebrate all of existence of Spider-Man by including the likes of Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and even the original live action Spider-Man, who was of course played by Nicholas Hammond. So going into the Spider-Verse, you have a lot of things that are already established in the back of people's minds. People are familiar with these concepts. So let's say by the time you get to the 3rd Spider-Man movie, Tom Holland is already, going to be like 10 years older, and you don't need to get rid of him, you just kind of need to have him around. So you use the idea of this Spider-Man multiverse, per se, and you establish, hey, there's some sort of giant threat that's threatening multiple Spider-Men in different realities. Now you can play with the realities because, like I've said before in other videos, the Fantastic Four are coming into the MCU. You're going to have Ant-Man and the Wasp dealing with that aspect as it's coming, with the whole, I guess, multiverse theory being opened up with Doctor Strange. So this isn't going to be anything that's going to be, I guess, foreign to new people. Essentially, they'll be like used to this concept because by then it will have been something that's ingrained into their mind. So you establish that there is a threat in the multiverse, and next up, it's coming for Peter Parker. But let's say Reed Richards, for example, figures out, hey, I can send you over to this other universe and maybe you can help them. And that's when you can have literally Tom Holland's character go into another multiverse and there he meets Andrew Garfield, who in this universe was known as the Amazing Spider-Man, but it's been about a decade since those days. This Spider-Man is now much older. He looks beat up. As it turns out, in this universe, he's a vigilante, a full-on one. He's the only superhero in town in this universe, and they more or less turned against him. Why? Well, after the Amazing Spider-Man, those events where he attacks the Rhino at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2, he doesn't win. He actually ends up just about being a big failure, and it turns out that this universe took a very dark turn. Rhino ended up injuring him very bad. He had to retreat, and Rhino took a giant rampage through the entire city. The Sinister Six showed up. These guys more or less control everything now. They're like the ultimate bad beings, and this universe is almost like dystopian and, you know, fully like post-apocalyptic. Yes, it's very technologically advanced. It's not like a giant desert, but these villains now control Earth. That's their thing, and they're the corporate Sinister Six. They're like a corporation now. The different giant continents are all controlled by these guys, and they're essentially like when you look at Blade Runner, they're these giant monopolized corporations now that control everything on Earth. And Spidey has been down on his luck, but they figured out that he's still alive, so they want to finally figure out who this Spider-Man is and kill him. That's why they developed this thing that can hunt Spider-Man. But as it turns out, while they were developing this little device, it kind of went crazy, and this dude, let's call him Morlun, like we did in the Spider-Verse comics, turns out that he's the ultimate spider slayer, and it's up to him to now stop all these people, and he wants to stop Spider-Man. But one isn't enough, because he knows about the multiverse, because it's also something being researched over here in this one, and he's a threat to everybody. So you have Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and he meets Andrew Garfield, and he helps him. He's like, dude, you got to come back. You got to put on that costume. This is what we need to do. I understand you had it bad. Everybody turned against you. You're kind of playing the meta narrative of the Amazing Spider-Man franchise, right? You're playing up that aspect that everybody turned against him and nobody wants him. But it's time for him to put on that suit and come back to it. And reluctantly, he does it. It's an older Spider-Man. But he's like, look, my universe is already destroyed. It's on the brink of destruction. What do? He goes, there's not much we can do here, but I know a safe place for you to live. And he's like, look, I'm pretty sure they'll take you here. If you want, you can be a hero. If you don't, it doesn't matter. This universe is pretty much as good as gone. What can we really do? And that's part of this giant, like, corporate thing where we see that Norman Osborn, more or less Harry also, kind of did go crazy after the Amazing Spider-Man, and they're pretty much destroying this Earth. It's going to be ended. So he's like, I'll rescue you, but we need to go. Morlun ends up catching up with them. He's like, oh, you know, they get into a fight or something. A portal opens up. Morlun's like, I can't defeat two of you, but I'm going to go somewhere else and defeat someone else. You guys stay here on this dying Earth that I pretty much used all of the power to open up a portal to another universe. In these last flashing moments, he jumps through. They follow him. Turns out they end up in the Raimiverse. In the Raimiverse, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man is truly shocked. He's like, wow, look at this Spider-Man. Who is he? Like, he's celebrated here. Apparently he's a legend. He hasn't been around for a while, just like me, but they love this guy. Tobey Maguire's, you know, like, just kind of there. They end up figuring out who he is because they know who he is, because the name is the same, Peter Parker. They find him. Turns out Peter Parker is a teacher. He's working at the school where both of them went. We know exactly what it is. You know, it's the same type of thing. And they're like, wow, this is crazy. You're a teacher now. He's like, yeah, I am. Who the hell are you guys? They're like, we're Peter Parker. And we're here to tell you that there's a giant threat coming your way. There's a dude who's literally going through the multiverse and stopping other spider entities. They're like, you need to help us now. And he's like, look, even if this is possible, which I believe it is, because there's a Doctor Strange that lives down the street. I've talked to him. I know him. The Age of Heroes here is gone. There's no more of that. That doesn't exist. That can't be possible. And Doctor Strange of our world has blocked it. Now remember, Spider-Man 2, they mention that Doctor Strange exists. Someone owns that name. So you bring in Benedict Cumberbatch as an alternate version, a Raimi-inspired version, okay, of Doctor Strange. And they talk to him, and he's like, something might be coming your way. That's definitely true. But I've detected nothing here. There is nothing of that sort here. There's been no breach, No portal through a multiverse or anything. Trust me, I would know. But you guys are causing a problem here. I need to send you out of here back to your own universes. And you have Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man being like, dude, that's a problem. Mine was destroyed. I have nowhere to go. And Doctor Strange just like, okay, well, let's figure this out. Oh, hey, Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Turns out he's actually invading your world. He pretty much bamboozled you guys and opened up a second portal the moment after he jumped through, and you guys ended up here while he's over in your universe, and he's going after potential other threats. And they're like, oh, well, let's go jump back over there, and we're going to deal with that. So they get sent back. You have Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man being like, hey, guys, I understand what's at stake, and trust me, this is pretty bad, so you could use a helping hand. You have Tobey Maguire put on the suit one more time. You know, it's like, oh man, this is you got 3 Spider-Men now. Suddenly you have that epic shot. Opens up above New York. There they are, 3 Spider-Men come swinging through. Moreland is there. Turns out Moreland has really like bent up, you know, reality. He's more or less using like that Amazing Spider-Man type of device. He just wants to suck up this world too, like he did in the other one. He's more or less, anytime he goes to a new world, he needs to use all the energy from the world, kind of like siphon it up to open up other portals to other multiverses to get all these Spider-Men. And as it turns out, he came to this one because he realized that Tom Holland was going to go somewhere else. He was going to send them away, and hopefully they didn't catch up with them. And now he's made us like this giant thing where you're going to open up a giant portal, and he's literally going to be able to pull all Spider-Men from different multiverses over into this one and just kill them all at once. So this giant portal in the sky, but of course, a superhero movie, why not? Let's go with it. And this is where a giant battle breaks out. You got these 3 heroic Spider-Men teaming up for this giant battle. But that's not the only part. There's a mysterious new Spider-Man who shows up called the Ultimate Spider-Man. People are wondering who this is. We never see who's under the mask. He doesn't say much, but we as fans know who it is. A couple other Spider-Man, like Spider-Punk, can show up. Maybe a robotic Spider-Man can show up, you know, kind of pay tribute. Maybe the original TV Spider-Man, Nicholas Hammond, maybe he shows up, like I said, and they all end up defeating him in one fell swoop. The Spider-Verse is saved, everybody's able to be sent back. We have Madam Web show up. She's like, look, you guys have did what we never thought possible. This is pretty crazy. They're like, who are you? She's like, oh, I'm Madam Web. Yeah, it turns out I look over all realities, and I can just, this is really bad, but you guys pulled through to it. Everybody kind of disperses. There's the 3 left Spider-Men, and she goes, well, unfortunately I was late. Andrew Garfield, you're Spider-Man, you're Peter Parker, your world's destroyed. We can't fix that. What do we do? You have Tom Holland go, hey, we understand how your Spider-Man took a terrible turn. Your world came crumbling. I'm the one they prefer here. Well, why don't you stay around? Why don't you take inspiration from our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man here, from Tobey Maguire, and why don't you become a teacher? That's what he does. Tobey Maguire gets sent back to his universe. There you go. End of a movie. Perfect franchise building. You include Spider-Verse. You include everything everybody loves. You finish off the Amazing Spider-Man. We catch up with Tobey Maguire since we never got to finish that series. And you tie it all nicely back together with everything kind of just working out. And you pay tribute to everything Spider-Man ever. Honestly, that's how I would do it.